straight up rocking it. I mean, what the fuck? We're
Stop.
getting a little wild here. All
We're
right.
always we're always getting a little I was gonna say wet and wild, but I really shouldn't say that. Even though the rain has come back.
Wet and Wild sounds like a wing flavoring. Um,
I'd eat that
um
wing.
now I'm
Yeah.
hungry. Okay. Well, that's your weird, bizarre cold open. Welcome back to Circling the Nest. I will
Yeah.
preface this by saying that it is Monday morning and I've got TweetDeck open in case anything happens. So if we do enter this bizarro world where Aaron Rodgers signs with this liberal hellscape that is Seattle, then we'll know about it, and we'll know about it in quick order.
Quick, everybody
Um,
just get your masks out. Everybody just like start throwing vaccines
everybody
at
get more woke
get
now.
get extremely woke extremely quick. We need
Hide
to
all the
scare them off.
ivermectin.
Yeah.
Probably has his own supply though.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sure he like imports it from I don't even know where ivermectin would be manufactured.
no, he would be a guy that would do that.
Yeah.
So we will go through order here because obviously in case you're not aware, it's been quite the week for the Seahawks. They've really kind of taken the sports world around here and shaken it up like a baby. Um, shaken baby syndrome. No,
Yeah, an upside down baby being shaken by its ankles for loose candy. That's what the
that's
Seattle Seahawks are
basically what happened.
right
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
So we'll go through the Seahawks had a wave of cuts to create some cap space. The same day DK Metcalf announced that he wanted out. He said, "I don't want to be here no more. I'm tired of John Schneider and his gigantic beard." Uh, and then the next day, Geno Smith was traded. We'll get to the DK trade. There was some good news over the course of the past week, in that both Jarran Reed and Ernest Jones the fifth, nope, fourth. Sorry, I got excited. I was
We got a
talking
bonus
letters.
one there.
Hey, we got a
He
bonus.
underwent mitosis.
Uh, we get a new one. We got to fill out the roster somehow, Jake.
Parthenogenesis. You know, that's a good way to do it, actually. Just clone the good players.
Well, if that was the case, the Dodgers would just be all Shohei Ohtani.
Dorktown made a video about that. All Shohei Ohtani would be good,
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus. When John Stanton finds this technology, get ready for 11 Julio Rodriguez's
Woo!
and just one Cal Raleigh.
Yeah. I did a
He's still
series not too long or a
underpaid.
couple years ago where I did all Cal Raleigh. Um,
My God.
it was remarkable. Yeah.
Just like he is. Um, and then we'll kind of look at where this team is now, and I'm holding a slot open in case anything happens because it would. We have yet to really have. Oh wow, look at this. A deal for Dallas. The Dallas Cowboys have re-signed their long snapper. Wow, I mean,
Whoa, that's wild. That's crazy.
Jerry did it again. Wrong, Jerry. Um, we'll look at where they're at now because we've got folks who are like, are they rebuilding? And I mean, I don't think this is a rebuild, at least not by intention. So we'll get through it. Back on the fourth on Tuesday, the team dropped four. I was really confused because they posted four thank yous in a row, all in quick succession, and I was like, "What? These guys are on the roster, as far as I'm aware. Like there was no reports about it. It was just they were gone." Um, as Seattle released four veterans in Draymond Jones, defensive lineman Draymond Jones, defensive lineman Roy Robertson Harris, who the team acquired via trade over the season, safety Rayshon Jenkins, who had requested a trade and had been granted permission to seek a trade, as well as offensive tackle George Fant. So the Fant dreams are done. Those four moves saved roughly 27 and a quarter million against the salary cap. They're all immediately free agents. None of them have signed as of yet. Do 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 do. Nope. Okay. Just checking in case you never know. Um, it wasn't really surprising any of those four. Seattle entered on Monday last week, with a little bit over. Oh, sick. Okay, a little bit over 6.8 million over the cap, so they were in the red. They were one of six teams at the time still in the red. Following those, Seattle pushed themselves 16.48 million in available cap space. So that was really cool to see. Um, maybe not so cash money for the guys who got cut. I don't think there's
Yeah.
any surprises in those guys, Jake. Really?
No, I mean Rashawn Jenkins and Draymond Jones are probably the best two there.
Yeah.
They made an
And that was,
impact a
we
few
talked
times
about
last
this.
year, but I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think they were worth the cap.
No, we had talked about like with Jones. I was like, okay, what do you do with his contract, right? We played around with the spot track button.
Yeah.
Every day I find a new button on spot track. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Woo! Was he one of the ones
Um,
that we were like, we got to old yeller this guy?
oh, for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
I
making
mean,
sure.
I don't know why I didn't even think about George Fant either because they signed him to that contract, and I was like, we're
Well, you
really
see Fant and
signing.
you think it's Noah Fant, and you're like, oh, we got to keep him.
Well, even his contract is one where people are like, do we need to old yeller him? And I'm like,
I mean, well, now we got to keep him around for sure.
yeah.
We'll get to that.
Please, please, offensive weapons stay.
Yeah. So two
Um,
days later, then they re-signed Josh Jobe.
oh yeah, I gotta get to Josh Jobe. Well, I was gonna say
We're
the
only talking about
Seahawks
big moves here today. Only big moves. Draymond Jones, Josh Jobe, Brady Russell. Those are the big
Brady
stuff.
Russell.
Oh yeah.
Brady Russell's coming. No, no offense. Be aware. Um, the next day, the Seahawks did this on purpose. They released those four guys all together, and then the next day they released Tyler Lockett. They tried to give Tyler Lockett his own day. If you go, if you go and look at Seattle's, social media, they have like this wave of Tyler Lockett stuff. 10 years with the franchise, obviously a major impact person on and off the field. The Tyler Lockett real estate agent memes are great. Always seemed like an upstanding teammate, a human being. Um, we had people that were a little surprised at this. I'm not. I think we've talked about this, right? His salary was a big chunk of money. I think his cap hit was about $30 million,
Mm,
which for him at this point of the year is not great. He was expected to make, yeah, $10 million base salary as well as another potential $7 million in roster bonuses. Um, so, they had to do this.
yeah.
They also had to get him off the books because if he had been on the roster at March 17th, it would have kicked in another 5.3 million. That move put them at 32.568 million in cap space. It was tough. Yeah, his cap hit for 2025 would have been $30 million, the third highest on the team and fourth highest of any receiver in the NFL. Just not
Yeah.
sustainable. I mean,
I don't like it, but I get it, and that's kind of the case for a lot of the moves we're going to talk about today.
yeah. Yeah, no, it just not something that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, Great human being. No one will dispute that. 10th in franchise history in games played, three-time winner of the Steve Largent Award, voted on by players and given to the player or coach who best exemplifies the spirit, dedication, and integrity of the Seahawks. Ranks second in team history behind only Steve Largent in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. He ranks second in punt return yards, as well as average yards per kickoff return. And this one kind of made me laugh, Jake. He ranks second in kickoffs returned for touchdowns at just two. What a big number.
Not a
But
thing
yeah,
that we're good at, I guess, as a franchise.
uh, it was Leon Washington, and that was it. Like there was
Yeah.
one guy who could do it. Um, yeah. I mean, this is not surprising. Like again, great human being. One of the greatest Seahawks receivers of all time. I did like Mina Kimes' tweet about how we went from two of the most underrated receivers of all time in Doug Baldwin to Tyler Lockett. Like,
Hmm.
hell yeah. Um, but yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see where he ends up. He's obviously still wants to play. I mean, with how things are going, I would imagine he'd go to Vegas, and we'll get why. I think he'll go to Vegas. Before we get to that, Jake, do you have any thoughts on any of those cuts before we keep moving?
Um, no, I mean, the Lockett one's like, yeah, that contract was huge. Fourth best in the NFL. I'm not sure he's the fourth best
Crazy.
receiver in the NFL. You know what I mean? So it makes sense. I hate it, but I get it. It emotionally it feels terrible, and that trend is going to continue for the rest of the podcast, isn't it, Charles? So what other moves are the Seahawks made? Not officially made. They're not on this official
Sure. Yeah.
transactions list yet, but they've been reported on.
Surely the fifth was a day where, we're here to celebrate Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
Nothing at all happened an hour after. That's wrong. No, an hour after, it was supposed to be a day for Tyler Lockett. I was seeing all these posts come in, all these people, a bunch of former Seahawks were talking about him. Like Rashad Penny posted. I was like, wow, you exist? Excuse me. Robert Turbin posted. It was really cool to see a bunch of former Seahawks chime in with some like Tyler Lockett mentions and lore.
Hmm.
And then an hour later, a report came out that DK Metcalf wanted out. I said, "Oh shit, this is not good. This isn't good. Like
Yeah.
I anticipated the Tyler Lockett thing, but losing DK Metcalf's a big deal. Um, I was really worried about that. There was interesting reports because I was like, why does he want out? Oh Jesus, the Rams signed Poona Ford to a 3-year deal. Okay, interesting. Oh, the Jaguars signed Nick Mullins. Wow, we're really get going here. Um,
Huge, huge.
it was interesting to see the reports come in about this because, it had seemed like Seattle would want to work on an extension with DK to try and lower his cap hit and keep him happy, right?
Yeah.
And then in the days after, the reports were that he wanted we're gonna check this along, okay? He wanted somewhere warmer to play. He wanted a stable quarterback situation, which that one
Hmm.
was like, well, why would he want that? Geno Smith is here.
Yeah.
Onto that nugget.
They keep telling us Geno Smith's our quarterback.
hmm And he wanted to play for a contender. Um, yeah. So that was interesting. We're gonna put a pin in that one. That one's just kind of floating around, and you're like, well, I was hoping, especially with those two, um, with the warmer weather, no, with the quarterback situation and with the contender, I was like, oh, he's just using this for leverage.
Yeah.
This is just going to be a thing with the contract because unless he does get moved, Myles Garrett kind of did the different players, of course. Myles Garrett kind of did the same thing where he basically said, "Death to the Cleveland Browns. I'm not coming back. I want to win a Super Bowl. You guys are horrible." And then he signed a mega deal.
Reasonable opinion to have about the Cleveland Browns.
No, it's right. Yeah. No one is surprised at this. Oh yeah, yeah. 3 years, $30 million for Poona Ford. Oh, good for you. Um, Interesting. Um, so yeah, that saga went along. And then essentially 2 days later, because the reports kept kind of spinning around about DK, New England, there was a point where it was said that New England was the top contender, and I'm like, not a contender. No stable quarterback situation. Unless you count like second year of Drake May as a baby as a stable quarterback situation. And it's cold as shit. Like what who and then like we talked about this I think last week, right? Um oops. Jake, Sam Darnold, three
Oh,
years, nearly $100 million. Oh my God.
just coming in now,
Yes,
Seahawks?
sir. Sam
Yeehaw.
Darnold,
Okay.
Ian
Bre-
Rappaport. Oh my,
Breaking news, folks. Breaking news live here at
well,
11:23.
I knew it would happen. Okay, well, I'll try to post about this, but we can talk about Sam Darnold. Um, okay, Jake. Actually, we have to get through Geno first.
Yeah, we gotta.
So
So
we have to
Friday,
explain
Friday
how we
4
got
p.m.
here.
Yeah.
Friday came around, and out of the blue, I sat down to eat a fucking chicken sandwich after we had done our Seahawks live show, I mean Kraken live show to break down the trade deadline for them.
Mm-hmm. I was
Boom.
playing Minecraft. I was having a great afternoon.
Jake was in fact playing Minecraft, and all of the sudden, uh, we get this report that Geno had been traded to the Raiders for what was it, a third round pick?
Yeah.
Um, and it
We don't even
was
know which one yet.
92nd overall. So I remember I said the other two deals, the other two picks that the the team had. I'm gonna tweet this.
Oh man.
That's just gonna send that out there and see how. Oh, even in Schefter's tweet, he spelled Seahawks wrong. He spelled Chakws. So that means he's not a. Don't know what team that is. Um, yeah, the
Thank you for tweeting Sam Darnold as hashtag a Seahawks player, all caps.
yes, very
Yes,
cool.
he's on it.
Um, it just came out. It was a third round pick, and everyone was really confused by this. You wonder what the hell is happening. And then it was really interesting to me, Jake, to see the kind of different thoughts on why this came to be. Um, there were some folks that were reporting, excuse me, that he had been offered $30 million by the Seahawks, right? And that the Geno Smith camp had wanted $45 million, which is a good chunk of change.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially with the cap situation that the Hawks were in.
hmm And then there was this other report that the team wanted that had offered him in the 40 to 45 million range, which is closer to what he wanted, right?
Hmm.
Um, and instead, his team never had a counteroffer. And so after that no counteroffer, and it seemed like things effectively stalled, right? They went to trade him. And Vegas makes a lot of sense because he goes to Pete Carroll, who he played under in 5 of his 6 years here in Seattle. Pete talked about how much he believed in him. There was a story about why Geno kept signing these 1 year deals, and it was basically because he believed in Pete, right? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. That is kind of what we've got with Geno at this point. He's supposed to sign this new mega deal. Um, with the Raiders. He wanted an extension and a raise, and the Seahawks were willing to give it to him. I guess it just seems with the numbers that came out about how they were willing to kind of go up there and match that, that he probably just wanted out. He wanted a
Yeah.
different situation. Yeah, so the 92nd overall pick, I believe Vegas has a 68th in the 72nd or something else in the 70s. So Seattle gets the lower end of that. Um, yeah, the Seahawks offer was in the range of 35 per Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer. The Seattle Times' source says that the offer was higher in the range of 40 to 45 million. Um, but Geno Smith's side turned it down and never gave a counteroffer. So they're like, well, if you don't want to be here, we have to do something. Um, and so they traded him. So, I mean, Jake,
It's
where
yeah.
where where are you with this? Because then there's the Bizarro World report that they made this offer to the Raiders of Geno and DK Metcalf for Max Crosby, and the Raiders said you are out of your mind, and they turned that down and immediately signed Crosby to an extension. Um,
That's
you know
really
the
funny.
the reports were that he asked for this trade or this this started to come out early in the other days, and that's why DK Metcalf asked for a trade because stable quarterback situation then makes sense, right?
Hmm.
Um, where are you with this? Just with the Geno deal and how this all just kind of imploded.
I it's I've had a few days to think about it, you know.
Hmm
We had our live stream on Friday as the news was breaking, and we had a little bit of a meltdown about it. Um, had to think, you know. Tom Brady's part owner of the Raiders. Pete Carroll's coaching there, and so to me, the first thing that tells you is that like if you know Tom Brady and Pete Carroll want Geno Smith is probably a pretty good quarterback here, folks. Um,
Brady
you know,
knows ball.
I think we can safely say that, right? Like to a
Yeah.
certain extent. Um, and so it's like when they want him, like you should keep him. You know what I mean? Like it's like if the Tampa Bay Rays call you up about some like fringy middle infielder or reliever, you keep that guy because like he's actually good because they have magic. Um, Similar situation, and it sucks a little bit. But I get it. I get it for both teams, and I hate it for both teams. Um, and I with this news that like just broken about Sam Darnold. I'm glad it's not Aaron Rodgers. That was being
Yeah.
slightly teased a little bit. That was a threat, and I was unhappy with it. Um, I'm I'm not losing my mind. I'm not having a meltdown, but I am sad. I am sad about it. Um, I can get it and I can hate it. Like
Yeah,
you're
both
not
can
you're
be
not
true.
making a huge upgrade here, and you're not changing like philosophically the kind of quarterback that you're getting. I feel like Geno and Darnold are very similar. Um, Certainly their passing success rate last year was very similar within a few percent, like within 1 percentage point of each other. Um, Sam Darnold has an advantage in passer rating by about 10 points, which um, I guess is good, but I don't think it speaks to like a remarkable improvement in the quality of play here. They both threw similar amount of interceptions, and they both get sacked quite a lot. Like the fundamental problem that the Seahawks were struggling with that caused them to lose um, enough games to keep them out of the playoffs has not changed. You have a
Mm-mm.
very you've replaced a 34-year-old interception and sack heavy quarterback with a 27-year-old interception and sack heavy quarterback,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
how
like
mobile is he? Right?
exactly
How
yeah
much is he going to be able to get out of the pocket and deal with things like Geno was able to? He might have been older, but I mean, he still showed that scramble ability,
yeah
right?
exactly, and they have
So,
yeah so they have like same interception rate, similar sack rate, slightly better success rate. It's not a huge change, and I'm not in love with it. I think you wanted that last year of Geno, frankly. Um, I mean, Darnold has played like last year was like his career best season. It was the first time that he's played every game. Um, it's like good for him, but I don't know. We'll see how we'll see. I guess basically. The Vikings did beat us last year, though. So
yep.
I do like the philosophy of going out to the teams that beat you and taking their good players. That's funny. Um,
Well, they did this with Blair Wall. Well,
yeah.
they beat Blair Walsh.
So yeah. So you know what? Maybe Darnold will be okay. But like if and I want to stress this, if Darnold is like extremely successful in Seattle, it will be because of his talent, but would won't reflect on a lack of talent by Geno because presumably they are going to upgrade the O line, which, as we have said a million times, is the best is the biggest problem. Um, if Darnold has like an outstanding 25, that'll be sick, I guess. You know, go Birds, etc.
Hmm.
Um, but you shouldn't read that in in the future as like an indictment of Geno Smith because he's probably not
No.
going to be successful in Las Vegas because Las Vegas sucks.
Yeah, it's interesting, with Geno and trying to keep it on Geno here. Um, and I'll get to the Sam stuff because there's contract stuff we need to look at. Oh God, my nose is
Oh,
flaring up.
oh, open up
Um,
spot track, boyo.
yeah. With Geno, like he's going to a Raiders team that, I mean, Pete Carroll signed to a 3-year deal. I think we talked about this last week, right? Um, oh, I think we talked about it, I'm sorry, on the live. Yeah. Uh,
Yes. Um,
um, and so if you're looking more at this deal, the Seattle will acquire, well, not acquire, will save $31 million against the cap in cash while taking on a dead hit of 13.5 million, which puts their number to about $63 million in cap space. What's funny to me about this trade is that the Raiders are taking on his full contract, so Seattle's not paying any of this. Like the only thing that they're taking is the dead cap, which, hey, I mean, I'll take that. I'm just kind of surprised that that happened.
yeah.
Um, like it was really interesting at that time. It was also interesting that now, since it's true, that the reports initially were that they were going to go after Sam Darnold, and now they've done that. So they essentially take the top quarterback off of the market, um, because the other reports, besides the one that we all feared, and thankfully we're not getting that, all Aaron Rodgers needs to do is go to Minnesota and complete his Brett Favre arc. He needs to get this done. Um,
Aaron
and
Rodgers needs to do a lot of things, let's be honest.
yeah,
Within football and outside of football.
yeah. Uh, the other options were Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, who. maybe in my sick lunatic mind, kind of didn't mind that idea. And Kirk Cousins if he got released, but I don't know if he'd like this liberal hellscape either, considering he's a MAGA guy. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But and then it
It's a
was
war
funny.
zone out here. We're all
Actually,
communists
the
with blue
streets are
hair.
on fire. Yes, you
Yeah.
have to procure your vaccine passport to leave the house. You get a new vaccine and shot every day. It was
There's
interesting.
an armed community officer outside of your door.
Hmm. No guns though, because we're liberal.
Yeah.
Defund
Armed
police, all
armed
that.
with shock battalions.
Oh my
Shock
God,
batons. They
fucking
tase you.
Star Wars. Um, it was interesting though that it was really kind of indicated, at least in what I was reading, that they were not going to consider Russell Wilson. They were like, nope, we're good. We're fine without that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so they go to Sam. Geno is gone. Really fascinating. It was really interesting, like we talked about on the show, how in the days before this, Geno had basically tweeted like it was the LeBron leaving the press conference. I was like, damn, you're as soon as you got that offer you didn't like, it was all right, I'm out. Like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, if best for his career, whatever, whatever, like it is somewhat fascinating though, um, to see that. So I don't know. We'll see. Um, all right. I guess I can write down Sam Darnold at the end here. We can end the show with Sam Darnold. What a thought.
Yeah. What a
Never
thought.
thought we'd get there. Um, yeah,
I
it
I'm
we
enjoying my Twitter feed right now because it's all meltdowns about Geno and Sam Darnold, and then like the other half is just Andor news because apparently there's Andor news breaking right now.
should I put that on the tweet deck too? This
Yeah.
this Andor.
Yeah.
Um, so that hit, and I think I kind of moved on from it. Um, because if especially once I saw that the report that Seattle had offered him basically what Vegas was going to give him, it was like he just didn't want to be here. He wanted to be with Pete. Like,
Yeah. And I
and he's
get
got
that.
his own thing. The Raiders line isn't good, isn't much better than Seattle's, which is I know a crazy thing to say. So you've got another bad situation there. I don't really know what their offense looks like. Um,
He just missed his friend.
it obviously couldn't, yeah. Well, and then especially with Tyler Lockett being a free agent, I was gonna say this. I was like, oh yeah, I was like, hey, what possibility is there that Tyler Lockett goes down to hang out with Pete and Geno? You
Yeah.
know, I feel
I
like
mean, I
that makes
would.
sense. Yeah, I mean, look at this depth chart. Geno Smith. Um,
Go work for
the
Tom
running
Brady,
back room is that meme of SpongeBob in like the rusted hallway. Zamir White, Sincere McCormick, Amir Abdullah in the big 2025.
Ooh.
And Alexander Madison, Jacoby Myers. I don't know who Trey Tucker is or DJ Turner. It feels
Trey
like
Tucker is the Mariners team dog.
it feels like we Geno Smith is gonna be thrown to a dog in Brock Bowers.
Mm.
Um,
Got that dog in him?
this is a hell of an offense. So hey, if uh if that's what Geno wants, go ahead. It's yeah, not great. So and then the very next day, um no, 2 days later. Okay, well, close enough. It all
Mm.
felt like the same day, honestly.
It really did. It's the day that never ends, you know?
There was all this reporting, again, there was the mention of New England, there was the mention of the Chargers, which I was like, hey, I wouldn't mind that. Like, give Justin Herbert a friend. Um, after they took away not Mike Williams. Well, yeah, I think he's a free agent too. Um, DK was traded to Pittsburgh. I said, what the hell? Because there were the reports that Seattle wanted a first rounder and a third rounder, and I said, no, you're not getting that. Like a first rounder feels optimistic. Like I think at this point of his career, Debo Samuel is not better than DK Metcalf, but it was still really funny to see him only get a fifth round pick. I was like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Like it feels like the 49ers offense, I mean, 49ers offseason will be closer to the SpongeBob in the rusted hallway just because they still
So,
have to pay Brock Purdy, and that'll eat up a chunk of their money, and then they won't be able to start paying guys. So, and they are reportedly don't like the Brandon Ayuk deal that they gave him either. So like, I just love to see that.
Yeah, it's good to
Um,
know that it can always be worse. There, but for
mhm.
the grace of God goes I.
So there's that. The DK deal, they sent him to Pittsburgh for a second round pick this year, the 52nd selection overall, and they'll swap sixth and seventh round picks. Um, this gives Seattle 10 picks in this draft overall and five within the first 92. Um, and then the NFL Network had a report for DK that he signed a new deal with Pittsburgh, a 4-year deal worth 132 million that keeps him with Pittsburgh through the 2029 season, adding on to the 1 year he currently still has from his last contract with Seattle. Um, so I mean, that's great. It makes him tied for the fourth highest paid receiver in the NFL and makes him, happy, I guess.
Yeah,
Giving him
in Pittsburgh.
$33 million a year, currently third behind Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. The Seahawks pick up his $10 million. They do pick up 10 million in cap space, but also take on 21 million in a dead cap hit. Jesus.
Brutal.
So at this time, going into before the Jarran Reed and the Ernest Jones deals, Justin Fields to the Jets. Okay, fascinating. They will eat him alive in New York media, but have fun with
Yeah.
that. This is so funny
You
to
mean New
just see
Jersey
this
media,
going
surely?
by. Aaron Rodgers is still unemployed, and Justin Fields is crazy. Um,
What if Rodgers doesn't get a team? What if it's over for him?
he gets different situation, but it's kind of similar. What if he gets the Trevor Bauer deal, where it's like
Yeah.
no one wants you anymore. You
You
need
get
to
ready
hang
to
it up.
learn CFL, buddy.
Get ready to learn CFL. He's going to be arguing with the refs after saying he was going to strike out 50% of his. Anyway,
I
um,
I I'm s- I'm morbidly fascinated every time Trevor Bauer just crashes out on Twitter after getting blown
oh, I
up.
love it.
It's so fun.
It's like watching theater. My show is on. So
My
going into
stories.
going into the weekend, Seattle was listed as having $68.4 million in available cap. That wouldn't include, the Ernest Jones deal, the Jarran Reed deal. So I mean, still in a pretty good situation
Yeah.
in terms of turning things around with that cap money and then with the picks, right? So there's that. I don't think there was too much.
I mean, yeah. Honestly, if we pick up like a decent wide receiver, like trade or free agent, I'm almost happy. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
almost not mad.
Um, I guess.
Because we did some picks, right? If the picks go okay, like there's a lot of ifs into
Mhm.
making these deals good in my mind.
Yes.
So that's getting a wide receiver on the level of your Lockett and your Metcalf. Um, Probably one guy there who's good at football. Could probably be your WR2 behind like JSN probably. Um, and then getting good picks, like taking good players in the draft after you've gotten all these picks. If both of that happens, and I hope that they have a good plan for the draft since they're putting all their marbles in it, and
Mm.
this is a draft class that I'm not thrilled about. But if both of that happens, these moves start to look good. If though, right? Like what are the odds here? I don't want to I don't want to sit here and go trust the process, trust the team. I'm sure something's good going to happen. But like you can see the shadow of a plan here, but it does rely on getting good picks in the draft, and that's such a crapshoot. Both from like
Yeah.
what the other teams are doing, the other teams are going to blow up your plans,
Yeah.
and like some of the players you pick are just gonna suck. That just happens. Um, and so I don't love it. I don't like trading away um, sure things in
Yes.
Geno and DK
Mm-hmm.
for gambles.
Mm-hmm.
Like your draft picks and like Sam Darnold to a certain extent. He's up and down. He's had his career best year last year. He's coming to a new team now. We'll see how he does. Um, I don't like trading sure things for gambles. It feels a little bit risky, and especially as we keep saying, because this is a team that was so close to getting over, and people are saying, "Oh, we're not going to win a Super Bowl with Geno." It's like, I do not care if someone is a Super Bowl level player. I care about if they can get in the playoffs because then
Sure,
it's a crapshoot. You know, it's
that
one
too.
play at a time. You win the games, you go on to the next. You cannot go on this is not a Super Bowl. There's no such thing as a Super Bowl caliber player. There are only Super Bowl caliber teams, and that requires chemistry, that requires skill, and that requires luck, an extreme amount of luck. Um, that you really need to succeed in there. And that's just how it works. And you got to expect that, you know what I mean? And it's like it's something that I've seen said a lot about Gino that I just don't agree with, and I don't like thinking about sports in that way. You know what I mean? Like the point is to just get in the playoffs, and then anything that happens
Hmm.
after that is bonus and is fun,
Yep.
right? Getting in the playoffs is winning the regular season, and then it's just a little fun little epilogue. Um, you get in. If you win a playoff game, I'm happy.
I think
Um,
the biggest thing I'll take from that is the moving on from controllables, right? Moving on from surefire things. That's why I
yes,
didn't want to move on from DK Metcalf.
yeah,
Like as much as yeah, he had a down year, like there's always the concerns that people I know had with um the personal foul calls and whatever, right? The temper.
hmm
I'd rather take what I know I can have in DK Metcalf than the potential of a good or a bad, right?
yeah,
Because like you said, the draft isn't gonna. The Seahawks are lauded for having some of the greatest draft classes in the last 2 decades, right? With the drafts that helped them build their Legion of Boom, right?
hmm
You can't bet on that though, right? Like there's no guarantee that these guys are gonna play out. There are former draft picks that you'll have that will go on an ATV and then ruin their career, and you'll draft them in the first round. I got to remember who that was. Jesus Christ.
Um,
Do you
Fernando
remember
Tatis
this?
Jr.
You said Tatis Jr.?
That was a motorcycle, right?
Oh, was he? Oh, that's right.
A few
Yeah,
years
that's
ago,
right.
and also his ring.
I'm thinking of who am I thinking of? Not LJ Collier. Malik
You
McDowell. Yeah.
wow. I was gonna say if you look really
2017.
closely, you can see Charles had pulsing with his brain as he thinks really hard.
Can you? Oh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2017, yeah, second round. They didn't have their first rounder, Malik McDowell, Michigan State. Didn't show up to camp like in shape. Um,
Michigan State. Well, there's your problem.
yeah, I know. I almost went to Michigan State, mind you.
My condolences. I'm glad you didn't.
I know. I don't want to be in Michigan. Cold as shit. Unlike DK, I can tell where it's cold. Sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
it was
yeah. So,
pretty cold here last night.
I think that's my biggest thing with, and this is just gonna be, I think we're gonna put this all together and make it one big, um, like the past week of turmoil for the
Yeah.
Seahawks because like and I wanted to leave this as its own segment of where the Seahawks are left now. And we can factor in, of course, Samuel Darnold. I gotta tell my USC friend about this. He'll be
Mm,
really happy. Ugh, USC. Terrible.
gross.
What is USC even good at? They got swept by Oregon in
Yeah, I was
baseball.
gonna say they just got blown up in baseball.
Terrible. Um, so, you know,
But not
yeah,
even the
I mean,
good
what a week.
Carolina.
I would rather not trade what I know and what
Hmm
produces for me,
Yeah.
and bank on things. They could trade these picks if a player becomes available by the draft, sure, but that's also not a guarantee either. Like I don't want to. It's kind of like the Kraken situation. You've got all this money, okay?
hmm
You've got all these picks, and you're not in a situation where you're tearing it down. There's no clear situation. If they were tearing it down, we'd have seen more trades, right?
Yeah.
It's up to your general manager and your front office to capitalize on that money and on those picks to present you players that will make you better this upcoming season. And I don't know if I have the utmost faith in either of those general managers in either of
hmm
those situations to do that. So, We can stop being negative for a little bit and talk about the two things that John did that were good, as they brought back Jarran Reed and Ernest Jones the fourth.
Yes.
Um, so Seattle doesn't have a lot of free agents of their own free agents um, that really were out there and to be concerned about. But Jarran Reed and Ernest Jones the fourth were the two that really were the two guys. Um, and so they did both of these on Sunday. They got John Reed and Ernest Jones. They said, okay, like we're DK gone, Geno gone. John and Ernest, come back, boys. Come on.
Yeah.
Um, so they gave Drawn a 3-year deal worth up to 22 million with 8 million guaranteed. Um, Pretty solid. I mean, he was one of the most consistent players on the defensive line. Returned back in 23, signed a 2-year deal that was worth up to 9.5 million. Wow. So they had him on a bargain of a deal. Jesus Christ. Um, he had been with Seattle drafted him back in 2016. Spent a good chunk of time there before he moved on to the Chiefs in 21 and into the Packers the 22nd year, 2022. Um, he had said several times last year he hoped his stayed with the Seahawks and ended his career in Seattle. And he's 32 now. I don't know, 35 could play to his end of his career, but it seems
Yeah.
like we're getting there. So, I mean, it's good. He was one of the guys that it seemed like were the only true, like, consistent change makers on this team.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, I'm happy with this. Do you have any John Reed discourse?
No, he's a good football player.
Good,
I'm
solid, good,
this is good.
solid.
This is good. We're retaining, at least this kind of core of like veteran players that still
Hmm.
um you can feel their impact on almost every play, certainly on every drive.
Yeah, no, and I mean, especially with that D line, with them moving on from Roy Robertson Harris, with them moving on from Draymond Jones, like you will
Hmm.
need to replace some guys, and I'd rather not, again, go out and have to replace something that I know and keep guys who I know can perform and want to be here. I think that was something that was interesting is G. Scott Sr., who does some media stuff with the Seahawks, kept tweeting after the Jones and yeah, Jones. Sorry, I'm used to saying Jones the fourth. Yeah, sure.
Jones, just
And
regular
Reed
Jones.
deals, the first actually,
Yeah.
um, is that pay guys who want to be here. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Um, and then shortly after, yeah, the Jarran Reed deal, it was confirmed that Ernest, who is 25, mind you, I kind of forgot that, which pretty good. Linebacker Ernest Jones the fourth signed a 3-year deal, so both 3-year deals, worth up to 33 million with about 15 million dollars guaranteed. He had agreed to a 3-year deal. Oh wait, no, I'm looking at the Reed deal again. So yeah, the two really the most important free agents for Seattle. Um, Nice to see them get taken care of before they had to get to the free agent negotiating period. Um, Happy to get that out of the way. They really kind of got him for nothing in a
Yeah.
way in that trade to Tennessee where they offloaded one of their failure linebacker signings. Um,
We love a good fail son.
God, yeah, because if you look at Seattle's free agent class from last year, it's just ugh, no good, no good. So it was interesting because Kansas City's Nick Bolton signed a 3-year deal worth up to 45 million, and it kind of felt like it set the tone for what Ernest might want, and we've talked about it before on this show for weeks, how, there were good talks. There were good talks at the combine, Jake.
Don't talk to me about the
Two
combine.
good talks. One ended up in a new deal. One ended up in a guy being traded. Crazy. Um,
I love talking. This is a good talk right here. We're gonna get signed.
John told me he was trading you, so
Oh man, where am I going?
Jacksonville. No, for that,
No!
for that, send him to Cleveland.
No, please. I'll go anywhere. Please don't send me to Cleveland.
Yeah, no. So it was pretty remarkable um for them to get Ernest in the first place, and now that they get to keep they do there is an Ernest the fifth. He has a son, okay, because he's keeping him here. He was born in July, and they now hope to make Seattle a permanent home. So that's nice. Um So yeah, nice to have some consistency in the defense. Nice to have two guys that want to be here, two guys that were your most consistent performers. It felt like Ernest Jones was always kind of wrecking things for the opponent when he was on the field. And so, to bring those guys back, especially with all of the change that's happened for you over the past few days, it's nice to have that consistency um, and to ensure that, the defense is never the problem for me with this team, at least this year. Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
and then, this kind of takes us perfectly into this whole thing about are they rebuilding? And I don't think so. You certainly, involving Sam now, you
Yeah.
certainly don't rebuild if you're gonna pay a guy who is coming off a career year, $37 million in his first year and $100 million total over 3 years. That's not a rebuild to me.
They're remodeling.
Yes, home renovation.
Home renovation,
I
they're
can
opening up the floor plan, kitchen to dining room.
I can close my tab dedicated to Aaron Rodgers, thankfully. Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
I had that open just in case we had to go over that. John said, "Hold on, Charles, I got you."
I w
Um
Oh man, I'm so glad I'm safe from having to write about Aaron Rodgers for 17 games.
um so yeah, Seattle came into this with about $68 million in cap space. That's obviously going to change with Sam Darnold. They still have a lot to do um with the offensive line, of course. It was interesting uh to see during the combine. John kind of talked about how he wants the new coaches. Wow, Dave Roberts is getting a new deal. NFL free agency is crazy.
Yeehaw.
The Dodgers are extending Dave Roberts for 4 years. Okay, good for you, I guess. People will still find a way to get mad at him. I don't know. You
In
still
such
need
cases.
interior line help. Um, with Tyler Lockett and DK gone, your wide receiver core is JSN, Jake Bobo, and Derek Young. So you need to do something there, whether that's here in the free agent period or in the draft. I imagine they'll
Yeah.
draft at least somebody.
Yeah.
Um, you'd like some D line help. Tight end's probably fine. Um, yeah, and again, the defense is mostly fine. Like I'm not really touching the defense outside of probably some pass rush help, right?
Yeah.
Um, I just want again, I want to hammer home this is not this there's no way this is a rebuild. Just with obviously the money that they've now dedicated to Sam Darnold.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a 3 year, $100.5 million deal, including 55 million guaranteed. Wanted to get those official numbers out there. And he will make $37.5 million in year one. So that's your Sam Darnold deal. Um,
Yeah. You don't spend that money if you're rebuilding.
No. And again, I think you tear it down even further if you are. You get rid of some of the guys on that defense. You probably don't sign Ernest Jones. I don't think Ernest Jones wants to come back here if they're going to go into a rebuild mode. Like
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't like the discourse about a rebuild because your defense is mostly set and they didn't want to trade either of the guys that they had to trade, right?
Yeah.
DK wanted out and Geno didn't his camp didn't want to counteroffer and work further on that deal. So I don't know. How do you stand, Jake, on where Seattle is? Whether that's the thoughts on the rebuild, the Sam Darnold contract, and just generally where this team is. Because again, I don't think this is a rebuild, and like we probably would have had this segment anyway, even if they didn't
Yeah.
trade those players, because it's like you got to wonder where they're at considering they missed the playoffs by a late tiebreaker,
Yeah.
um, and it seemed like things were on the up in Mike McDonald's first year.
Yeah. Okay. So I've, been thinking about it, right? While we've been yapping.
Hmm.
This show has made me feel more confident, just like recording this and talking about it, than I did, this morning when I woke up. I, as much as I'm talking about, or I guess griping about how similar Darnold is to Geno, he's not. He is a certain level of upgrade, right? Now, whether or not that on paper success that he had last year with the Vikings, which were a more competent and well-rounded offensive team, that probably, is leading to why his numbers are, marginally better than Geno's. Um, I the question here is like, is that going to manifest with the Seahawks? And I think a lot of that is going to have to come down to locker room chemistry. It's going to have to come down to um, the playbook that Clint Kubiak cooks up and kind of the scheme that they're start working with. We've been talking about iterating on the 24 team. That yeah, like you said, missed the playoffs on a late tiebreaker, lost 2 games by 1 play. Slightly better luck there in the playoffs last year. If they get in the playoffs last year, do they make these moves? And I'm not sure. But if they combine this Darnold deal with like a good pickup of like a solid wide receiver that we know has had success at the pro level, and they make good picks in the draft that turn out to be successful early on in the season, I don't. I'm I will feel about as confident in the team going into next year as I did going into this year. Um, and I felt quite confident going into this year. That middle stretch was rough, primarily because like it wasn't supposed to be that way. You know what I mean? Like the Hawks were supposed to be good, and they were good. They just weren't great.
Mm.
I think, yeah, I think the team has put themselves in the position where they have the possibility to be great, but I'm not sure, if they are maximizing those odds. You know what I mean? Like, I think the ceiling is high here. I'm not sure where the floor is. Um, and
Yeah.
we're not going to know where the floor is until we have a more complete picture about what the offense is going to look like,
Yeah.
especially the offensive line. And like offensive line, it's tough to talk about, right? Because you really only see the plays that they botch. Um, the plays where the offensive line is successful, um, all the glory, is given to the quarterback and the receiver or the running back, right?
Mhm.
Um, Offensive line is tough to talk about. It's tough to talk about what makes a good offensive lineman. Um, doesn't commit holding and protects the quarterback, right? It sounds simple, but it's hard to manifest. So it's hard to talk about now. If that manifests, I think this is a good team. If that doesn't manifest, we're going to be in for a slog of a season. And it really is kind of like, how well is the team going to coalesce? How cohesive is the team going to be? And I guess we'll see in the preseason. We'll start to get some looks about what the actual offense is going to look like. I'm always optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm a fool,
That's crazy to
basically, is
hear
what I'm
considering
saying.
you watch the Mariners on a pretty consistent basis.
I watched the Mariners yesterday and they won. So
You're
think
still
about that.
optimistic?
Still
I should
optimistic.
think about that. Um,
John Power Crawford hit a home run yesterday. Think about that.
Colt Emerson stinging baseballs.
That's
When
so
he'll
true.
be at the major league level? Don't know.
2027.
Jesus. Um, yeah. No, I think that's good. And especially it's interesting to me, especially, you talk about the floor. We might not know about that until after the draft even.
Yeah, exactly.
Because and even then that's tough because their first round pick is in the middle of that first round. Like it's not
Hmm.
necessarily a game-changing pick. Guys do fall, yes.
Yeah,
I was
but they don't.
reading.
But they don't have the initiative. You know what I mean? Like they don't have the initiative like to choose exactly who they want because their plans are gonna get blown up.
Yeah, yeah. So, it is very interesting. I mean, a lot of people are very much questioning their belief in John Schneider. There's a lot of those, and then the people who, and I think I kind of lost this in my thoughts about the DK and the Geno deals. That you know, there are some folks who do believe in him because of the money that those guys wanted, and how maybe not the best for the team that it is, and they got some draft capital. It's not a lot, but it's some draft capital. Because yeah, I mean, were you really gonna pay DK Metcalf $33 million a year to be the third highest player paid wide receiver in the league while I love DK Metcalf, I don't think he's the third best wide receiver in the league,
No, yeah, certainly not.
right? Um, and with Geno, like even $45 million doesn't crack him into the top 10. And even the top 10 quarterbacks that are like in terms of contract, I don't think they're the top 10 best quarterbacks.
Yeah,
That's Murray in there. And I was like, no.
and we've talked about like the philosophy here of quarterbacks about like um we've seen a lot of overpays recently, we've seen a lot of underpays recently, and I think Geno is like the most rated player. He's not overrated, he's not underrated. He's a little bit underrated, but he is, you know, I think the that Geno's contract was probably fair, and I think yeah, like it's tough to for him in a weird spot here where like he was with a team that almost made it's tough. It's tough. I hate it. 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 I'm
Your
glad.
version of the nightmare.
Nightmare, nightmare, nightmare. Seahawks, 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 Seahawks.
Oh,
Ugh. Oh man.
it is.
How do you feel, Charles? How do you feel about all this? How do you feel about the Seattle Seahawks of football?
I think once you do get past the emotion side of it, because we all watched Geno Smith become this pretty solid quarterback here,
Mm-hmm.
right? It went
Mm-hmm.
from that opening game when they played Russell Wilson's Broncos and they won.
But
It wasn't a pretty game. What?
sorry, I have a reaction whenever you mention the Broncos.
Oh, I heard a noise. I was like, what the hell was that?
I did not recognize the so-called city of Denver.
Oh, this is really funny. The San Francisco 49ers have spent the lowest amount of money so far this year. $1
Fair, but for the
million.
grace of God, you know what? They're Marinersing it.
That would be really funny if they went into that.
Yeah.
Um, like we watched that. There was the really fun DK story about, his neck, right? His neck in Ole Miss and how, he almost didn't play football,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the ups and downs of the DK Metcalf, the binky mouth guards, right, as a rookie, you know, some of the big moments, um, you know. But when you get past that, like I don't think DK ever really fully hit his potential, whether that is the amount of offensive coordinators he had to play under, the fumbles last year were bad, right? Or just
Mm-hmm.
sometimes letting guys get into his head. Like, I don't think he ever fully tapped that. And I don't know if Pittsburgh is the place that's going to be able to do that for him because they've got George Pickens, who has a similar sort of thing where all the talent in the world, but can he put it together, get out of his own head, not let other guys affect him and do that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
With Geno, like again, seeing his trajectory, I had all the belief in Geno Smith in the world. I still do. I don't think, unfortunately, things will get much better for him, and I think fans will react negatively to him in the Raiders and be like, "How I told you, like they should have done this." Um, but like, because it's gonna happen because that Raiders line is still bad. Like, hey, if they go and
Yeah.
sign somebody right now, oh, sorry, I'm gonna say the Denver Broncos again. The Denver
No, no.
Broncos took a safety away from the 49ers and Talanoa Hufanga. So the 49ers fail off season continues already. This is crazy. I love it. Um,
I do live for it. Yeah.
I do live for it.
It's like watching the Anaheim Angels. You know.
I love a good hate watch, you
Yeah.
know. Much like Kendrick Lamar, I am filled with hate. Um, so let's see if Spot
Love to
Track has
hate. What can I
updated our
say?
salary cap. They have not. Okay. Um, but like I think it was well known that Geno wasn't gonna be the future. Like I don't think in 2 or 3 years Geno was gonna be your quarterback or should be, because I think that that speed, that ability to get out of a horrible pocket will decrease, right? You know, so I'm at peace with those moves. I just am again similar to the Kraken, wondering if good old Johnny Schneider, good old your GM, can work with this salary cap space that you've created, and work with the draft capital that you have to take a team that has the pieces to be a playoff team. We're not going to get ahead of ourselves and say a championship team, right? Because
Yeah.
usually that team takes a few years of a good team like clicking
Hmm.
finally break through,
Yeah,
right?
it's a philosophy thing, it's a cohesion thing.
Yeah, oh, cohesion especially. Yeah. So, I do think that there are the pieces here to be a playoff team, especially with that defense, especially with how they looked. Um, but it is very much on the shoulders of John Schneider and the people in that front office to spend that money correctly, um, and to use those draft picks correctly. And obviously, then, with good old Clint Kubiak, need Clint Kubiak to get the most out of Sammy Darnold. Oh God, the Sam Darnold. Hey, 14 is available. DK is gone, so he can have his
Yeah.
14 jersey.
Oh
I just thought
no.
about that. Yeah. So,
Yeah, he wants it too, I
um,
bet.
yeah.
That's why they had to trade DK.
They knew they were gonna get the ginger.
Hmm.
So, yeah, man, that's where I am. Like I'm somewhat hopeful, but I need with free agency starting and with the draft later, like I just need them to capitalize on we won't know really if the draft worked out until into the season and in years
Yeah.
past, right? You can't say, okay, they nailed this pick.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that, but probably said that with like Malik McDowell, and then he rode
Yeah.
a ATV, got injured, wasn't ready for training camp, and never turned into an NFL player. So,
I mean, and every pundit after every pick is, I love this pick for this team. This is a really
yep,
great pick. I
there's just
mean,
no guarantee,
yeah.
you know.
I'm looking at Sam Darnold's Pro Football Reference page. He has one
Do
of the
we want to get into
squarest.
Sam Darnold?
He has one of the squarest necks I have ever seen in my life.
Jesus.
It is I mean, um, I don't know, man. I don't want to get into Sam. Well, we'll explore the Darnold connection later. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting that we've got Kubiak and Darnold, both of whom are former Vikings, even though they didn't overlap at all. That's kind of funny in a cosmic
Yeah.
sense way.
The Seahawks connection goes back a while with the with the Vikings for whatever reason. Like
Yeah.
there's Sidney Rice, Tavares Jackson,
Well, Vikings are attracted to the sea. It's what it
Percy
is
Harvin.
they poach former Vikings to appease the Ballard community.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna play with Spot Track and add Sam Darnold to this roster. Oh God. Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
week, guys. It really has been a hell of a week, and it could get even more interesting with the free agency period.
Yeah.
No one's coming across the ticker right now, so at least for now, it seems that we are saved.
When does like the cap stuff start to have to be like finalized? Like later this month, right?
I think later this month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then even with that, I think that's good to point out. Thank you. Is that um they need about 10 to 12 million dollars left in cap space to be able to sign their draft picks.
Yes.
So it's like they have all this cap, yes, all cap, no cap. Um, they need to have that money uh available to them.
And they need more now
So
because they keep trading up.
yeah. So, gotta keep an eye on that. So we'll look to that. Anyway. Yeah. Anything, Jake? Last call before we get out of here.
Um, I think they should sign more guys with square necks. I think
That's
we should be the square team. It'd be great. It'd be fun.
the square team.
Full on just built like Minecraft Steve.
Flint
The
and
real one,
Steel.
not Jack Black.
Oh, okay. No Flint and Steel. All
No
right.
flint and steel.
Well,
Flint and steel.
thank you. I was hoping someone caught that, or else I'd sound like a real idiot. It's like, oh boy. All
Oh
right.
man.
Well, till we see you next week. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Don't trade your starting quarterback, or do. I
Do
mean,
it. Could be fun. Could be good.
Kubiak.
What if they win the Super Bowl next year?
Then we'll come back to this show and probably look at it in delirium.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I mean, I aim to make the show as delirious as possible. So
I mean, you do a pretty good job. Well, till we see you next week. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Do whatever you can to make today a great day. I'm gonna wait for you to do it.
I already did it. God dang it.
You couldn't see it.
Hello there, everybody. Charles Hamaker here with Circling Seattle Sports. I'm joined by Jen Barnes of Rough and Tumble that we happen to be at right now.
Yeah.
Jen, why don't you talk to me a little bit about what we're announcing today, which is our partnership.
I'm so excited about this. First of all, I just want to say thank you. I think all of us here at Rough and Tumble are big fans of what you and your team at Circling Seattle Sports does. And so, I know you know this, but when you came to me with this idea, it just seemed pretty natural. And it's not just me. I think a lot of people in the sports community in Seattle also really respect you and your team. So it's exciting to kind of see these two things melding together, and we're really excited to start implementing some of the things and then hopefully seeing you guys a little bit more often.
Yeah, and so with what Jen says about seeing us more often, we've got a few things in the works, but you'll see watch parties here. We'd like to do a few different of our community drives, which you'll hear about here in a little bit from now. We've got to make our announcements one at a time. I can't drop everything.
Not everything
Right.
all at once.
But this has been a home for a lot of our team, whether it's myself, our friend, our photographer Liz is behind the camera. Liz is here often, so our team has kind of adopted this place kind of like our own since I saw you at our soft launch. So, it's been great to have that support. And in a lot of ways, and part of the reason I wanted to do this was the Rough and Tumble embodies a lot of what Circling Seattle Sports wants to do. Obviously with women's sports, with the storm and the rain, but just being, having the game on, every game on.
Yep.
How much of that, did you see a line kind of even before this idea was mentioned when I first met you?
I think it's always felt like that. I mean, you and your team were here on opening night, and you just feel like you're part of the space, so it felt like really natural. And the fact that you actually cover all of the sports really makes your group stand out. So you are always covering all the rain games, all the storm games. You'd have women's softball, you'd have women's basketball, you'd have women's hockey. We love it. So all of those things, and obviously passionate M's fans, passionate Hawks fans, and passionate Kraken and Sounders fans. So really, from our perspective, those two things meshed really well.
So, you heard it from Jen herself, but this will be our home for all of these events, whether it's you can't make it to these games at home, we're always going to direct you to Rough and Tumble, and obviously the games on the road as well. All these, we're talking about the rain, they've got their schedule out finally,
Yeah, yep.
but this will be our home for that.
Great.
The storm games on the road, this is our home,
Yeah,
for all intents and purposes.
I love it.
And when I mentioned it to Jen, when I first had this idea come up, I had this idea come up wearing a pink wig
Yes, you did.
ahead of Megan Rapinoe's final regular season home game for the Reign this past year.
Yeah.
I told her it's because I wanted this to feel genuine.
Yep.
I wanted a connection to feel genuine, and it does. So
Yeah.
that's what this is. Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, and I'm so excited to finally announce this partnership.
I can't wait.